I was reincarnated into an unknown world where, mysteriously, I'm the only guy surrounded by the most popular girls in my class, and while they now depend on me to survive on a dangerous island, another group is starting to prove that the real threat might not be the wild beasts, but other humans. In summer, third-year student Shinomiya Hokage quietly studies a survival guide instead of exam papers, convinced real tests begin after break. He recalls binging books, tours, and survival videos, meticulously gathering every practical tip he could. Glancing at his packed bag under the desk, he judges his preparations as finally complete. Yet he broods that only real experience will bring him closer to his distant dream. Hearing noise behind, he slightly turns, already expecting the usual routine. A rowdy group crowds him, mockingly demanding ninja tricks as if he is a joke. Scratching his head, he coolly responds that if such powers were real, he would have used them already. From the back row, he endures mild bullying, half ignored as classmates gossip and laugh. Head on his arms, he drifts towards sleep, wishing summer break would hurry and free him. Rain roars through dense jungle foliage somewhere far from his ordinary classroom. Hokage stirs on damp stone, murmuring as consciousness slowly returns. He sits up by a dark cave mouth ringed in vines, stunned that his desk is gone. Panic hits as he shouts into the greenery, demanding to know where he is. Under a blazing sun and towering palms, he realizes the classroom has vanished like a dream. Hugging his knees by the cave, he wonders if this bizarre place is actually reality. His phone shows no signal or Wi-Fi, cutting off any hope of calling for help. Checking his gear, he decides to save the emergency flare until real rescuers appear. He pulls out a still damp handkerchief, proof he only just left school minutes ago. Surrounded by leaves, he deduces he must have been transported here while napping at lunch. Sweat runs down his cheek as he admits he has no idea how any of this happened. Then excitement surges. Brandishing his survival knife, he treats this as his big chance. Staring up through the canopy, he vows to enjoy this survival life, dream or not. Forcing himself to calm down, he reminds himself survival means staying alive first. Knife ready, he slips between trees, planning to scout the area and secure a base while the sun is high. He spots chipmunks and monkey silhouettes, quickly cataloging the local wildlife. Hoofprints in the soil tell him even wild boars roam this forest. Clinging to a trunk, he notes that where there are animals, there is potential food. Pushing through brush, he happily discovers a flowing river just as he had hoped. Testing the water with cupped hands, he judges it clear but still hesitates. Kneeling on the rocks, he debates filtering or distilling it to protect everyone's stomachs. He decides safety comes first, shelving experimental methods for another time. From his bag, he produces a purifier bottle, designed to make even muddy water drinkable. Seeing his 3 spare purifiers lined up, he relaxes, knowing water will not be an issue for a while. He gulps the filtered water with relish, surprised by how fresh it feels. Leaning back, he savors the taste, wondering if nature itself is seasoning it. Sitting on a riverside boulder, he plans to find a cave base and then secure food. He figures they will rely on edible plants at first, though he wishes for a nearby sea. Hearing rustling voices, he jerks up, realizing the sounds belong to other humans. Crouching behind rocks, he peers through leaves, anxious about what he will see. A familiar girl in uniform appears, frustrated that even her smartphone has abandoned her. Startled, he pops out of the bushes and collides awkwardly with her, both faces burning. She yelps and stumbles back, her friends rushing over in confusion. The 4 girls crowd around the flustered one, shocked to find Hokage looking like some wild castaway. Hokage clears his throat, realizing these are exactly the high-status girls from his class. He recalls how this group once tossed erasers at him from across the room. He mentally labels the confident Mana as the girl's de facto leader who always commands attention. He remembers Eri as the tidy, composed girl admired by otaku circles for her image. He thinks of Karen as the quiet honor student whose private life remains a total mystery. And he tags Arisa as the loud, impulsive one who always chases risky excitement. He reflects that careful observation of classmates during lunches had secretly honed his survival skills. Now the girls surround him, peppering him with questions about his knife and survival gear. Mana brightens, assuming that if their ninja is here, then the rest of the boys must be nearby too. She cheerfully names specific classmates, wondering aloud where they might be. Karen calmly suggests they stick close to Hokage for safety, at least for now. The others quickly agree, citing his knife and his proud survival man claim. Mana suddenly leans into his space, declaring he is now officially part of their team. Hokage accepts on the condition he can still act according to his own cautious plans. Arisa then blurts out an awkward question about whether ninjas even feel romantic urges, embarrassing everyone. Hokage reels in disbelief, his mind going blank at her bluntness. She rambles about how boys supposedly react when surrounded by girls, clearly misinformed yet intense. She accuses him of being unable to respond properly, flustered by his lack of visible reaction. Mana, equally red-faced, awkwardly admits she also gets jumpy when hearing strange gossip and rumors. Hokage steadies himself and says this is hardly the moment for such talk. He changes the subject, proposing they first locate the sea after securing a safe cave. Walking ahead, he privately marvels that he is finally speaking normally with these untouchable girls. Arisa nervously asks if they are still somewhere in Japan despite the exotic scenery. The others debate locations like Hokkaido, concluding the dead phones imply an uninhabited island. Mana tosses out a silly guess about being in some remote eastern region, teasing herself and others. When someone calls her an idiot, she explodes in protest, face puffed with indignation. Hokage suddenly clamps a hand over her mouth, warning her to quiet down despite her protests of pain. The remaining girls stare, confused by his urgent gesture. A dark shape crawls from the cave, sending a chill through the undergrowth. A full-grown tiger emerges, its fangs bared and eyes cold. Peeking from cover, they all freeze, horrified that such a beast is lounging at their would-be base. Karen points out in disbelief that Japan has no wild tigers at all. Hokage, carrying a bundled log, prefaces a theory he knows will sound outrageous. He explains that the mixed traces of boars, chipmunks, and this tiger indicate they are not in Japan. Mana tilts her head, asking what his ecological mumbo-jumbo is supposed to imply. He outlines how chipmunks and boars usually live far apart, proving this ecosystem is unnatural. Mana's expression tightens as she quietly asks where they really are. Hokage admits it sounds insane but suspects they may no longer be on Earth at all. Facing the group in a small clearing, he states bluntly that this might be another world. Mana lunges at him, shouting that such talk is ridiculous and too scary to accept. Everyone piles on her, covering her mouth before her panic can draw the tiger's eye. With the beast still dozing behind them, Hokage says the real mystery is how they even arrived here. He reminds them that only moments earlier they had been relaxing at school during lunch. Sitting with them, he admits his theory lacks proof but still fits the evidence best. He concludes that whatever the truth, they must quietly retreat from this dangerous area. In the distance, the tiger lazily watches them slip away through the foliage. Later, Eri drinks purified water, cheeks flushed as the cool liquid spills past her lips in relief. The group relaxes by the riverbank, praising Hokage's foresight in packing survival tools. Arisa giggles to herself, overthinking that sharing a bottle might count as some roundabout closeness. Hokage hurriedly clarifies that her bottle is unused and he avoids touching the spout anyway. She happily chugs the water, while he casually suggests Mana hydrate as well. Mana lingers at the edge, anxiously wondering aloud if they will ever see home again. Hokage says if this truly is another world, returning could be nearly impossible, though not unthinkable. Mana hugs her knees, eyes dim, the weight of their situation finally sinking in. The others ask if there is any way to confirm the otherworld theory as they plan their next move. Mana insists they hurry to escape the forest, only to pause when Hokage hints at a remaining option. He reveals his idea involves their phones, giving her a fragile thread of hope to cling to. Holding his phone toward the sky, Hokage explains they can still use the camera and suggests climbing a tall tree to photograph the surroundings. Mana yells that she cannot climb like an animal, while Arisa proudly declares she can, leaving Hokage speechless. Eri steps in with a sly smile, saying she has a proposal that might solve everything, immediately impressing Arisa. Hokage admits his old phone takes weak distant shots, so he wants higher photos, and the girls listen with interest. Karen calmly hands over her modern phone on a selfie stick and leans close to show the clueless boy how to handle it. Hokage hugs the massive trunk and nimbly climbs, the girls watching from below as he ascends higher and higher. From the base of the tree, the three girls stare upward, cheering their real ninja to keep going. The group gapes as Hokage appears tiny high above, someone joking it looks like he really is a monkey. Clinging to the trunk, Hokage glances down, noting that the girls finally seem livelier and wondering if they are tougher than him. The selfie stick bursts through the canopy, phone peeking into open sky above the endless foliage. Perched mid-tree, Hokage clicks the shutter with a grateful grin, silently thanking modern technology. Back on the ground, Karen tilts her head, sensing something odd, while Mana peers past her in confusion. One of the girls points up in alarm toward a rustling shape near Hokage, insisting something is moving up there. Hokage leans out from the trunk, puzzled, just as a shadowy figure lunges toward the dangling phone. A small monkey rockets past, snatching the selfie stick from Hokage's hands while he shouts in disbelief. Below, the girls panic that the monkey stole the stick and scold Hokage for losing to it despite his ninja status. Clinging to the bark, Hokage yells down that this is no time for jokes as the situation spirals. Moments later, Karen casually cradles the clingy monkey in her arms, leaving Hokage frozen in shock. Safely on the ground again, Hokage watches Karen test the smartphone and hesitantly confirms it still works. Karen smirks, proudly claiming she has a knack for winning over animals while the monkey nestles against her. Her so-called friend suddenly scrambles all over her, sending her tumbling as the others shriek and dart forward. Hokage and Mana sprint toward Karen, agreeing they need to rescue her from the overexcited creature. Hokage dives in with a furious glare at the misbehaving monkey, while Karen flushes in humiliated outrage behind him. His hands slam forward, and he suddenly realizes he has grabbed somewhere he absolutely should not have, panic flooding his face. An off-panel roar demands to know what he thinks he is doing, snapping the mortifying moment in half. Later, everyone pretends nothing happened. Karen scolds him as childish while Eri coolly urges him to check the captured photos. The phone screen shows wide shots of endless jungle and cliffs, Hokage noting there are no roads, buildings, or clearings at all. The group crowds around. Disappointed there is no human sign, yet Hokage insists the shots still gave them crucial data. Hokage taps one image where distant water glitters, calling it a huge find and reminding them he was searching for the sea. The girls press in too close around his shoulders, excitedly asking about islands and resources while he reddens at the closeness. On the pixelated horizon, someone spots a dark lump that might be land and urges him to zoom further. Karen suggests enhancing the image with an editing app, and everyone stares at the screen in tense anticipation. The adjusted photo reveals a clear island profile on the sea, prompting a chorus of triumphant shouts. Arisa jabs her thumbs up in Mana's face, amazed she guessed right about another island being out there. Mana calls Hokage's name, gently touching his shoulder to pull his attention away from the phone. Smiling hopefully with warm cheeks, she asks if this discovery means their situation just improved. Hokage answers with a cautious smile that if this really is a normal island, there could be people living beyond that shore. The whole group leaps with joy, yelling that their odds of rescue have just shot up. Hokage opens a compass app, explaining that even without signal, they can use it to march straight toward the sea. Using marked trees as landmarks, everyone follows him through the forest, spirits lifted by a clear direction. Karen questions why they still carve signs when they have the compass, and Hokage says it is backup for when devices die. She points out he brought many tools but no analog compass, leaving him awkwardly sheepish. Arisa cackles and pokes fun at his oversight, calling him clumsy as he scratches his cheek. Eri, walking beside him, admits she has been thinking about something serious for a while. She reveals she has been wondering how they might someday reclaim the cave from that gigantic tiger, stunning Hokage. Hokage grimly recalls his knife skills are not meant for fighting such a beast and doubts a direct clash. He pictures the roaring predator and states they must instead find a way to make wild animals fear approaching them. Hokage confesses he is unsure his idea will work, but they need some plan, leaving Eri anxious. Eri suddenly giggles and praises Hokage as amazing just for calmly thinking about strategies in this nightmare. Blushing from the compliment, Hokage asks her to share her own ideas if any new plan comes to mind. Soon, a shout rings out that the trees are thinning and they are almost free of the oppressive forest. The group bursts from the shadows onto a dazzling shoreline, all shouting in amazement at the vast sea. Arisa and Mana sprint straight for the surf, yelling about its beauty, while the others follow more slowly. Watching them play, Hokage smiles in relief, convinced reaching the sea will really help them survive. He studies the waves lapping around his shoes, explaining they can gather shellfish, seaweed, and even fish here. Later, as they rest on the sand, Hokage warns the sun is dropping and urges everyone to pack up before dark. The girls pause and glance back, uneasy, asking where exactly they are supposed to return to. Hokage rummages in his bag and responds that the destination should already be obvious to them. Holding two metal cylinders like weapons, he declares they are heading back to the cave to confront the tiger. The girls imagine the beast and recoil in terror, unable to believe he intends to face it for real. Mana stammers if he truly means returning to that lair and challenging the monster directly. Hokage insists they all must join, explaining they cannot win unless they work together, though the girls protest they are ordinary students. He flashes an image of primitive humans wielding fire at wild animals, saying terrifying beasts is the fastest defense. Hokage contrasts that with their situation, pointing out this particular predator is far stronger than they are. He turns back to them, stating they will defeat it through another method instead of brute strength. As he leads them away from the beach, he promises to explain the details of his strategy while they walk. High in the trees, a trio of monkeys swings playfully through the branches, chattering loudly. One of them drops into Karen's arms, and she happily welcomes Rita back like an old friend. The group relaxes in a clearing while Karin cuddles the monkey, noting how attached it has become to her. Hokage glares suspiciously at the blissful animal and mutters a mocking nickname under his breath. Karin kneels and questions the monkeys like scouts, asking what they saw, as they chirp and flail their arms. Translating their gestures, she reports the tiger still guards the cave entrance, and no other creatures are nearby, shocking Hokage. Hokage exclaims at her ability to understand them and declares that power unbelievably useful. The other girls whisper that Karin might really be some kind of beast tamer, or even the monkey's boss. Arisa's imagination runs wild, picturing Karin as a dramatic queen commanding obedient monkeys in a fantasy lair. Returning to reality, Hokage crouches low and signals everyone to advance slowly and silently through the undergrowth. Up ahead, the tiger lies curled and sleeping, chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Hokage points out its peaceful slumber and tells the girls to follow the plan exactly while they have this advantage. Mana and Arisa nervously whisper that failure means being eaten, wondering if this gamble is truly okay. Hokage admits the risk but warns that without a secure home, they will never sleep soundly on this island. He grips his tool like a baton, eyes sharp, and orders everyone to steel themselves to drive the tiger away. The girls drop into tense stances, each vowing to do her best, despite the terror twisting in their faces. Hokage leads them to the edge of the clearing and, with a deep breath, announces the start of their operation. The tiger finally notices them and lifts its head, growling as the 5 figures line up against it. Hokage shouts that they must not show fear, or the beast will instantly pounce. The tiger bares its fangs and roars, saliva flying as its killing intent crashes over them. It pads sideways, watching them warily while the group holds position just inside the trees. Hokage lunges forward, drawing out the metal tubes that hold the real key to his plan. Sparks leap from the ends as he snaps the tools open, igniting whatever is packed inside. Twin flares erupt into blinding light and fire in his hands, forcing the tiger to squint at the sudden brilliance. Hokage roars the signal, and the tiger flinches, claws scraping the rock as it decides whether to attack or flee. All 5 humans scream at the top of their lungs, their combined voices shaking the air. Hokage keeps bellowing, ordering them to raise their voices even higher until their throats burn. The terrified tiger finally turns tail, bolting into the forest while their furious chorus chases it away. The girls stare after it in stunned silence, slowly realizing the monster truly ran off. Hokage thrusts a blazing flare toward the cave entrance as everyone jumps and celebrates their reclaimed shelter. The girls swarm him with praise, shouting that they repelled the tiger while he credits their courage. Hokage confirms to Mana that the beast will now think twice before approaching, fear etched into its memory. He raises the flare like a trophy, declaring this noisy fire attack a victory for human knowledge over raw strength. With the tiger gone for now, Hokage volunteers to explore the dark cave alone while the girls wait outside with their luggage. Karin's stomach suddenly rumbles loudly, making Arisa glance over and tease her for sounding like a lost animal. Karin flops back on the grass, clutching her midsection, groaning that with the danger past her hunger is crashing down on her. Mana and Eri look down at her sprawled form as Karin moans she is starving, while Mana points out the sun will be setting soon. Inside the cave entrance, Hokage steps out with his gear and calmly assures everyone that the interior is safe for now. Karin bounces up to him, declaring she is hungry and begging to go fishing, but Hokage refuses, saying fishing takes too long even if food is urgent. He instead suggests mushrooms, gesturing cheerfully as illustrations of different fungi float around them, while Karin recoils at the idea. Hokage explains that knowing edible mushrooms is basic survival and confidently offers to judge them, while Mana worries about poisonous ones and Karin still pouts. Mana proposes gathering twigs at the same time, and Hokage agrees, noting they will need a bonfire if they plan to roast anything. Hokage adds that they need enough for 5 people and asks for a partner to help collect mushrooms, just as a hand taps his shoulder. Eri steps forward with an elegant smile, volunteering to go with him, and Hokage thanks her as the others look on. Back with the group, Karin rallies everyone to search for poisonous mushrooms as well so they can avoid them, while Hokage warns them not to touch anything suspicious. Deep in the foliage, a hand plucks a plump mushroom from a cluster, the finder calmly stating they have located a good one. Eri leans in close and asks Hokage if her find is edible, and he nods, saying this chewy variety tastes surprisingly good. While they quietly gather more, she wonders if they can harvest plenty of this species, and Hokage answers that it grows easily regardless of climate. Hokage suddenly realizes he is alone in the forest with Eri and averts his eyes nervously as she crawls ahead through the brush, searching for more. Eri straightens up with a book in hand, casually suggesting they burn their textbooks as fuel instead of walking far just for twigs. She flicks open a lighter she had hidden, announcing that she even brought this, her eyes glinting with quiet pride. Hokage advises using his lighter today to conserve hers for the long term, and silently wonders what kind of life she led before all this. The word long time hangs in the air, and Eri stares at the sky, unsettled by the idea they might be stranded here for ages. Hokage zips his bulging bag closed, satisfied that the mushrooms they collected should be enough to feed everyone tonight. He points toward the faint smoke column from the earlier flare and suggests they head back before darkness falls completely. But Eri stops him with a sudden thought. Before she can finish, a heavy impact sends their mushroom bag hurtling through the air as someone shouts for them to look out. Hokage dives to shield Eri, and they crash together on the ground, faces buried awkwardly as they gasp in shock at the sudden tumble. Scrambling upright, Hokage anxiously asks if she is hurt, but Eri just laughs breathlessly, apologizing for dragging him down with her. As he tries to rise, their limbs tangle and Eri ends up close behind him, both of them flustered by the clumsy proximity. Hokage hastily suggests they rest a moment to calm down, and Eri agrees, sitting beside him as he pointedly faces the opposite direction. Noticing his avoidance, Eri leans against his shoulder from behind, demanding to know why he keeps looking away when they are alone together. Hokage stiffens, cheeks burning, and stammers an excuse, while Eri's eyes widen as she realizes how tense he has become. Off-panel rustling draws attention, and she murmurs that something about him changed the moment she hugged him, while he panics and denies it. Eri edges closer, saying guys often get awkward like that and there is no need to be embarrassed, leaving Hokage even more cornered. With a sly smile, she claims boys always pretend to be composed, insisting it is not the time for pretending, yet clearly amused by his fluster. Her face inches toward his as she accuses him of secretly holding back his true feelings, making Hokage gulp and break into a sweat. Overwhelmed, Hokage throws up his hands and begs her to wait, while Eri squeaks in surprise at his sudden shout. She squeezes a cushiony mushroom in her hands with a playful expression, cheeks bright red as she tests just how rattled he has become. Hokage's eyes spin in panic as he struggles to steady himself, reminding himself he is supposed to be the unshakable survival man of the group. Eri coolly points out she never gave permission for him to cling to her earlier, and he frantically insists the accident was not intentional. Grinning, she pokes his chest, declaring this flustering payback for what happened, while Hokage yelps and squirms. She then leans forward in a bold pose, asking whether things would feel easier if he simply relaxed instead of bottling everything up. Hokage, face flushed, becomes acutely aware of her gentle fragrance and closeness, his composure wobbling as he tries to focus. Eri rests her head against his shoulder and clutches his shirt, murmuring that being this near makes her thoughts slow and heavy. In a quiet, trembling voice, she confesses that all of them depend on him now, and that if he ever lost control from the pressure, she would accept sharing some of that burden. Hokage stammers a protest, but she moves close to his ear, saying honestly they cannot predict what will happen on this island. She vows to support him so he does not break under the strain, even promising to use every bit of her strength if that is what it takes to steady him. With moist eyes and a soft smile, Eri tells him to think of her help as gratitude, since their very survival rests on his shoulders. Time passes in heavy silence until Eri turns away, covering her face with her hand, while Hokage hides behind a tree trying to cool his nerves. Regaining her composure, Eri calmly states they should head back before darkness closes in, gathering the scattered mushrooms around her. Hokage steels himself, cheeks still pink, determined not to be swayed so easily again as he pushes off from the tree. He hesitantly calls Eri's name, and she answers without turning, waiting to hear what he wants to say. He blurts out a question about whether this kind of charged conversation is normal with the wealthy older men she jokes about, genuinely curious. Startled, Eri whirls around, insisting she never goes that far, blurting that this was actually the first time she has been so physically close to a boy. She adds that the moment had been special, and Hokage quietly replies that he is also doing his best to act properly. He awkwardly admits he just assumed she was used to playful banter, making Eri stop in her tracks, back turned and shoulders tense. After a pause, she faces him with burning cheeks and thanks him, confessing that, strangely enough, the accidental closeness had felt unexpectedly comforting. She then yells that it felt good enough to make her crave more of that warmth, shocking Hokage as he shouts her name. Flustered by her own admission, Eri spins away announcing that is quite enough for today, insisting she is not as casual as people might think. Hokage chases after her protesting he never thought badly of her, while Eri tosses a cryptic "who knows" over her shoulder. She stops and looks back with a soft smile, telling him that everything that just happened must remain their shared secret. Hokage freezes at her words, then quietly agrees, the weight of the promise settling between them. Eri beams and declares it a promise, asking him to keep protecting them from now on, even at the cost of his comfort. As they walk, Hokage realizes he somehow ended up being treated like a husband under his wife's thumb, and he sighs at his own naivety. Through the trees, they finally glimpse the cave mouth ahead, silhouettes of classmates clustered around the entrance. Hokage suddenly halts Eri with a hand on her shoulder, saying something feels off about what they are seeing. They peer from the bushes and realize the number of figures at the cave has increased, more students gathered than before. A closer look shows a mixed crowd of boys and girls laughing, carrying bundles, and working together in front of the reclaimed shelter. Hokage and Eri watch silently, expressions wary, as they try to assess if these newcomers are friend or threat. Arisa spots them and waves excitedly, shouting that Hokage and Eri have finally come back. From the ground view, their classmates cheerfully welcome the returning pair, chanting a playful nickname for their self-appointed leader. A tall boy with long bangs steps forward, smirking that Hokage must have been the one who guided everyone here after all. Gesturing mockingly toward Hokage's bag, he jokes that seeing flares and smoke made them think rescuers had arrived, and calls Hokage a weirdo for carrying so many. He leans in close, eyes glinting, suggesting they join forces and hinting that his group would graciously accept Hokage into their ranks. With a predatory smile, he presses the point, arguing that in this strange situation, more people is obviously better than being alone. Laughing, he steps back and claims it would be pitiful for Hokage's little group to stay isolated, pretending concern. The girls around Hokage admit they feel oddly relieved knowing other classmates survived besides them. Yet Hokage, facing the smug boy, answers that while more allies can help, there is something he needs to hear first. Standing firmly, Hokage demands they explain their plan in detail before he decides whether to cooperate. The sharp-eyed boy glares back, taken aback by the condition, his single-word reply hanging dangerous in the air. Another student calls out to him from the cave mouth, trying to calm him before tensions boil over into a real fight. A blonde boy with an easy grin steps between them, saying there is no point in causing a scene when everyone is stranded together. Approaching more politely, he apologizes for his friend's haste and starts introducing himself as the afternoon light wanes. Hokage recognizes him as Sumeragi Reito, remembering the impressive reputation attached to that name. An infodump flashes of the Sumeragi siblings' glittering lives, rich heirs excelling in both academics and sports, already minor legends back in Japan. Reito gestures toward a distant hill, explaining that his group's base is there and that a large fire on its summit could signal for rescue. Showing off his phone, he claims it has a special anti-kidnapping system that can contact his family even without normal reception, possibly summoning a helicopter. Hokage admits the device sounds amazing but quietly adds that assumes they are still on Earth, which he is no longer sure of. Reito counters confidently that betting on rescue is still worthwhile and promises they will arrange help for others once his family retrieves them. One of Reito's followers nervously asks Hokage what their group should do now, torn between hope and fear. Reito casually hands his phone back and orders the bespectacled boy carrying a massive load of firewood to store it carefully. Hokage recognizes the overburdened classmate as Tanaka Manturo, an otaku often bullied back at school, now clearly being used as a pack mule. Byakuya curtly warns Manturo not to fall again and dirty his precious bag, making the smaller boy stammer an obedient reply. Reito turns back to Hokage, pointing a finger as he boasts that while Hokage may play survival expert, he will not last long without their powerful group. Hokage stands his ground and calmly declares that his group will not join them, choosing to remain in the cave they fought so hard to secure. Byakuya snorts that Hokage must be an idiot, while Reito stares in disbelief, unable to process the refusal. Reito accuses him of wanting to treat the cave like his personal playground, and Hokage flatly confirms that is exactly his intention for now. With a dismissive shrug, Reito and Byakuya decide to leave, telling Hokage to do whatever he wants as they turn their backs. Byakuya calls out to Mana, ordering her to come with them, assuming she will naturally follow their lead. Hokage watches in silence as the girls hesitate behind him, sensing a choice hanging in the balance. To everyone's surprise, Mana steps forward, smiling and announces she will stay at the cave with Hokage instead. Reito and Byakuya whirl around in shock as Mana explains she cannot just abandon the person who worked so hard to reclaim their shelter. The rest of the girls crowd around Hokage, declaring in unison that they will keep following his lead and even look forward to tomorrow's fishing plans. Reito glares at the united group and demands to know if they have lost their minds, unable to accept that they chose Hokage over him. Mana steps closer with a hopeful smile, asking if Hokage will really stay by their side and never leave them behind. Reito laughs lightly at her concern, wondering aloud what she expects him to do if Hokage is left alone with all the girls. Covering his face with his hand, Reito mutters that abandoning classmates would stain the name of a Sumeragi heir. He then grins broadly, joking that the girls are kind for offering to act as Hokage's insurance policy. As Reito and Byakuya turn away, Reito casually tells them to visit his base if they ever change their minds. Byakuya glances back, grumbling whether Reito is fine with that ninja keeping such attractive girls on his side. Reito's eyes narrow. He says Hokage did not steal anyone. The girls simply chose to stand with him for now. A sly smile curls across his lips as he notes that, in any case, the island seems to have no shortage of girls. Byakuya's irritation melts into a nasty chuckle as he agrees that there will be plenty of others to befriend. The two boys walk off laughing crudely about their plans, unaware Hokage's group watches them with disgust. Back at the cave, the girls vent angrily, calling those guys disgusting for joking about romance in this crisis. One girl shudders, recalling how a coworker once tried to force himself on her, saying it was a close call. She teases Eri that talking about mushrooms in that mood sounds suggestive, making the other girl flustered. The group bursts into laughter as Eri vows to chomp those mushrooms to pieces in revenge for the teasing. When the mirth settles, Mana looks at Hokage with gentle eyes, quietly calling out his name. Standing proudly with the others behind her, she announces that they choose Hokage's camp over Reito's. Hokage smiles with renewed resolve, promising not to betray their trust or make them regret their choice. He then hoists his bag and cheerfully suggests they celebrate by grilling the pile of mushrooms they gathered. Skewers are thrust over the flame, and the mushrooms begin to hiss and steam above the hungry fire. The girls lean in together, shouting a cheerful thanks for the meal before biting into the roasted mushrooms. Moments later, their faces fall. The texture is fine, but they complain the mushrooms taste like nothing at all. Hokage sits by the fire with a knowing grin, saying he will cast a spell to fix their disappointing dinner. After he works his trick, the girls taste again, and their eyes light up, amazed by the sudden burst of flavor. Mana correctly guesses he used curry powder, and Hokage boasts that such seasoning is vital for survival. As they keep eating, Hokage explains the spice is strong but limited, so they must save it for special meals. Crossing his arms like a sage, he tells them not to worry since he already secured the ultimate everyday seasoning. With dramatic flair, he declares that almighty spice is simple salt, which they can harvest endlessly from the sea. The girls gasp, surprised that merely boiling seawater can give them salt, and he nods at the obvious trick. Laughter echoes in the cave as they tease Mana for not knowing, though another girl sheepishly admits she was shocked too. After dinner, Hokage kneels on the stone floor, calmly explaining he is stuffing bags to fashion makeshift pillows. They discuss bedding, and Hokage suggests layering leaves to form a simple mat if they get enough free time. Soon he lies back with a yawn, telling everyone to conserve strength by resting properly for tomorrow. Mana glances over, noticing something odd about the way the others are settling down, and quietly asks what is wrong. Arisa tugs at her sweaty shirt with a grimace, saying her whole body feels sticky and she wants to wash up. From the cave entrance, Hokage admits he cannot see anything in the deep darkness if they go further inside. The girls instantly misread his practicality, accusing him of planning something pervy with their spare cloths. Hokage sighs in exasperation, insisting the rags are simply precious resources they should reuse carefully. Marching past him toward the inner pools, Arisa warns him not to peek while the others complain about hygiene. Once they disappear inside, Hokage sprawls out alone, muttering that he is exhausted and should just sleep. Outside, stars glitter over the jungle canopy as he reflects that, rough as it was, they somehow survived the day. Dawn light spears into the cave mouth, signaling the start of their second full day on the mysterious island. Hokage slowly opens his eyes, confused by the warmth pressed against his cheek as he wakes. He jolts in shock to find Arisa asleep right on top of him, face inches from his, breathing softly. His heart pounds as he realizes she has wrapped herself around him in her sleep like a clinging pillow. Hokage whispers urgently for her to wake up, worried someone will see this compromising position. Glancing around, he sees the other girls still dozing nearby and panics at the misunderstanding this could cause. He squirms, trying to slide out from under her without waking anyone or making the situation look worse. Arisa lazily rolls over in her sleep, accidentally dragging his head closer and clutching him tighter than before. His face burns red as he scolds her unconscious self for such reckless sleeping habits. Struggling not to get any more flustered, Hokage flails, reminding himself that now is not the time for foolish daydreams. Just then, Mana and the others stir, rubbing their eyes as they wonder what the commotion is about. Arisa suddenly hugs Mana and wails that she has been wronged, painting herself as the hapless victim. The half-awake girls gather around, and Mana tries to calm them, saying there must be some explanation. Hokage hastily points at the scattered books by his side, insisting he never moved from his original sleeping spot. Mana examines the positions and reasons that Arisa must have stumbled over while half asleep and collapsed beside him. Hearing that, Arisa's face flames with shame as she apologizes, realizing her accusation had been false. Hokage smiles awkwardly, saying he is just relieved everyone believes him, and the misunderstanding is cleared. Mana checks on Arisa gently, who forces a laugh and claims she is fine, trying to shake off the embarrassment. Watching Arisa's flustered reaction, another girl deadpans that Hokage probably thinks he just scored some kind of bonus. The girls gang up on Arisa with playful scolding, while Hokage watches their noisy bickering with quiet affection. He thinks that if days continue like this, with laughter and teamwork, they might actually be okay here. Outside the cave, Arisa asks what today's schedule is, patting her stomach and eager to start another adventure. Hokage announces that the main task will be collecting rocks, even if that sounds boring at first. Mana and Eri look puzzled, asking what he plans to do with rocks when there are already so many around. Hokage just winks mischievously, saying the purpose is a surprise they will understand soon enough. He calls on Karen for help, and she guesses his idea while confirming he will also need firewood. Impressed by her quick understanding, Hokage praises Karen and entrusts the lumber work to her. Turning to Eri, he politely asks her to handle the rest of the wood gathering for their camp. Mana is assigned to forage food and water, saluting energetically as she accepts the crucial mission. Arisa thrusts up a fist, loudly declaring she has decided her own role before he can even assign one. She insists she will be in charge of fishing, proudly claiming she will haul in a mountain of fish for everyone. Hokage indulges her enthusiasm, saying it is not top priority, but they can certainly attempt it. Mana grins, adding that even their little pet will join her, as she and Hokage discuss stocking up on provisions. Arisa explodes when Hokage jokes she might end up catching nothing, shouting that she is not some hopeless loser. While they argue in the background, Eri calmly asks Hokage what task he will be focusing on today. He replies that he has a long list but first wants to teach them how ancient people crafted basic pottery. A diagram appears in his mind as he explains kneading clay, shaping a pot, baking it, and using charcoal inside. He proclaims that they will spend the day experiencing life like humans from the Paleolithic and Jomon eras. Before they split, Hokage sets safety rules, telling the girls to stay within the riverside area and flee if they see wild beasts. Later, Arisa returns to the riverbank beaming, proudly presenting the heavy clay she dug up for the pottery project. As she peers over his shoulder, Hokage finishes assembling a simple fishing rod from his survival kit. Delighted, Arisa snatches the rod and shouts with excitement, eager to try it even before it is fully ready. Ignoring his warning to wait, she whirls the rod and whips the line into the river in one wild motion. She tilts her head, confused that nothing bites instantly like it might in a video game. Hokage tosses an earthworm her way, explaining she still needs to attach proper bait to tempt real fish. She recoils in horror at the wriggling creature, then forces herself to try anyway rather than admit defeat. Time passes with no catch, and Arisa pouts that fishing is dull while Hokage calmly shapes clay nearby. Suddenly the float dips, Hokage points it out, and Arisa yelps in disbelief that something finally bit. She flails around, shouting the line is hooked as Hokage tells her to pull steadily without a reel. When she nearly topples off the rocks, Hokage lunges forward, grabbing her to stop a dangerous fall. Dangling over the water, Arisa stares wide-eyed as he warns there is no medicine if she gets hurt out here. Once back on solid ground, she laughs shakily, promising to forgive his scolding since he saved her. The rod bends hard, and together they brace themselves, both still clutching the stubborn line. Arisa screams that she wants to eat this fish no matter what and begs Hokage to help finish the battle. He steps behind her, guiding her grip from over her shoulders and calmly tells her to leave the technique to him. With his face close by her ear, he calmly explains they will pull the catch up little by little in sync. Arisa steadies her breathing, cheeks warm, and nods determinedly as they prepare for the final heave. Counting together, they yank the line and launch a gleaming fish out of the water in a spray of droplets. Hokage wipes his brow and laughs, amazed that his makeshift rod could actually haul in such a prize. Arisa triumphantly shows off the flopping fish, while Hokage identifies it and she jokes he is being weirdly critical for such a victory. Arisa beams beside the fire while Hokage explains they should wait so everyone can share the fish once he finishes preparing the charcoal-filled pot. Later, by the campfire, Arisa thanks Hokage for his help and he laughs that they will both enjoy grilled fish thanks to their teamwork. As the sky stretches overhead, Arisa hesitantly calls out to him and brings up the moment when he had supported her from behind at the river. Both sit side by side among the rocks, and Arisa hugs her knees, admitting in a tiny voice that her heart skipped in a strange way back then. Hokage bursts into embarrassed laughter while Arisa fumes red, blurting that lately she almost would not mind if he teased her a bit. The fire crackles as Hokage jokes that if the supposed victim is the one trying to fluster him, then maybe he should be the one claiming innocence. Arisa suddenly stands, shouting toward the treetops that someday, when they finally return to normal life, she wants them to go on a real date. Hokage looks at her fondly, muttering that only a total social natural like her would casually talk about going on a date in this situation. Still blushing, Arisa insists they should enjoy an ordinary happy outing together, asking if he agrees that such a future sounds fun. Leaning back against a boulder, the two laugh and promise each other that when they make it home, that date is officially on. Back at the cave, the others gape at the impressive fish roasting over the flames, amazed when they hear Arisa was the one who landed it. Hands on hips, Arisa smugly takes full credit while conceding that Hokage might have helped her just a little in the final struggle. Eri proudly reports that their clay pot is currently baking, and Mana adds that they all worked hard so dinner is coming together. Karen shows off a neat pile of mushrooms and firewood, asking nervously if the amount she gathered will be enough for the meal. Hokage praises the quantity but calmly points out one suspicious mushroom, warning that a poisonous type has slipped into the mix. When the girls ask if he will throw it away, Hokage instead declares he will turn the dangerous fungus into a protective charm. He ties the mushroom carefully to a cord, explaining that if they hang it up like this, it will start giving off a strong warning scent. The group imagines a chain of those charms around the cave entrance, and Hokage says animals will avoid the area since they hate such toxins. Everyone cries out in admiration, calling it exactly the kind of clever idea they expect from Hokage as he grins sheepishly. Eri steps over with quiet confidence and asks if he can evaluate the stones she collected earlier for his mysterious project. On broad leaves, she has sorted the rocks by size and texture, and explains how she categorized each pile with methodical care. Hokage lights up, shouting his thanks and saying her organized selection is absolutely perfect for what he has in mind. He asks if she studied geology, but Eri shrugs that she simply did what she imagined he himself would have done in her place. Hokage tells her she really is sharp, and Eri turns away shyly, relieved that her efforts are actually useful to the group. Seeing everyone busily tending the fire and preparing food, Hokage is moved that the girls not only worked so hard but did it so skillfully. From outside, he hears rustling in the brush and glances toward the dark trees, while the others continue chatting around the fire. Arisa calls him back to eat, and Hokage returns to the cozy circle where the girls sit waiting with skewers of fish. Unknown to them, a shadowy figure watches from behind thick foliage, half hidden against a tree trunk in the dim jungle. Hokage glances around once more, but, seeing only his friends' smiling faces, dismisses the eerie feeling as just his imagination. After the meal, Arisa cheerfully thanks the fish for the feast while someone asks Hokage what plans he has for the afternoon. Hokage sits on a rock like a camp leader and announces that since they are progressing well, he wants to speed things up by shuffling jobs. Mana and Arisa happily keep their tasks, with Arisa pumped for more fishing while Eri volunteers to gather more clay this time. Hokage calls Karin over and tells her he wants to start shaping special stones, which she instantly realizes means tool making. Karin strikes a composed pose, saying she will handle the pottery work instead and asks for detailed guidance based on her history knowledge. Hokage thinks to himself that not only does she know a lot about ancient eras, she also understands quickly, making everything smoother. As Arisa skips off with a rod, Karin joins her to head toward the river, while Hokage agrees to meet them there later. Watching Karin's calm back, he notes that she seems cooler than the others on the surface but is actually quietly considerate. He surveys the sorted stones Karin prepared, impressed that she arranged them into ideal groups of shape and hardness. Gripping a rock, he smiles with determination, feeling that her trust in his plan is proof he cannot afford to disappoint. He imagines the steps of making a blade, from cutting a notch in a log to wedging the sharpened stone in place until it locks tight. With fierce focus, Hokage smashes stone against stone, declaring this rough, sweaty labor of tool-making to be his responsibility. He chips away at the wood and rock until the pieces finally match, carving out a groove for the stone edge. At last, he hoists the finished tool high, announcing that with this crude axe, they can seriously ramp up material gathering. Eri returns, carrying supplies and stares in awe at the tool, exclaiming that it really looks like something from a museum. Hokage explains he is crafting a whole set of stone tools, and Eri nods excitedly as she sets the heavy basket down. While she washes Arisa's borrowed bag, Eri mentions she should clean it before returning it, and Hokage confirms it belongs to Arisa. Eri gazes at him with admiration, listing how he keeps coming up with one survival innovation after another. Hokage brushes off the praise, fiddling with a spear tip as he insists that everyone's efforts are what truly make things work. He reminds her that Eri hauled all the wood and Karen chose the rocks, so none of this would be possible without them. Eri murmurs that collecting proper rocks is actually the hardest part and that she owes Karen a real thank you. She falls into a thoughtful silence, sitting primly as Hokage grows nervous, unsure what is running through her mind. When she suddenly leans closer with a playful smile, he stammers in panic, completely thrown by her change in mood. Eri teases that he is already flustered just from her sitting near him, making his entire body jolt with embarrassment. Trying to defend himself, Hokage sputters that reacting awkwardly is unavoidable for him, especially after everything that happened yesterday. Eri's face reddens as memories of the previous day flash back, making her heartbeat pound against her calm outward expression. With eyes lowered and voice trembling, she asks if she should repeat that personal favor from yesterday, inching closer to his face. Hokage's mind spins and he blurts out if she is actually serious about offering something that intense again. He abruptly coughs and looks away, insisting she stop saying things that throw him off because he is trying to concentrate on his work. Eri glances at him sadly, asking if that means he does not want any support from her at all, despite how much he does for them. She edges nearer, pointing out in a small voice that he keeps staring at her anyway, which makes him flail in denial. Finally, she leans against his shoulder, deciding that if he will not say it out loud, she will stay close on her own terms. Hokage freezes, and she quietly explains that since he always works so hard for everyone, she wants to give him some kind of thanks. Her hand drifts hesitantly toward his lap, and the air tightens with awkward tension as Hokage realizes he feels overwhelmed. Eri whispers that he should consider what she is about to do as a personal reward, leaving him wide-eyed and swallowing hard. But then she suddenly remembers her hands are covered in mud from the clay work and pulls back in a fluster. Hokage practically yells in panic, asking if there is any other way to show gratitude that does not involve such a confusing situation. Before the mood can settle, Arisa calls from outside, and Eri grabs Hokage's hand, urgently dragging him back toward the cave entrance. From a distance, the cave stands quiet and solid, then the two of them dash inside together, leaving their tools and bag outside. Later, the whole group returns from the forest, and Hokage wipes his brow, announcing cheerfully that they made it back safely. The girls gasp at the lineup of finished stone weapons propped against the cave wall, marveling at how advanced their camp suddenly looks. Eri comments that he managed to create quite a number of them, and Hokage nods, pleased yet a little embarrassed by the praise. Hokage jokes that such achievement calls for some kind of grand reward, which makes Eri jolt, remembering her earlier bold offer. Arisa jumps forward volunteering to present the next surprise, while the others correct her wording and cheerfully appoint her announcer. With a drumroll-like shout, Arisa thrusts out a pot brimming with wriggling small fish, proudly revealing their new haul. Hokage peers in amazed, exclaiming that they caught enough for everyone just as Karin steps up saying the pot finished baking too. Arisa teases that Karin is actually scared of earthworms, and Karin protests while clutching the pot, embarrassed at being exposed. Hokage tries to calm things down, saying he is simply glad they secured food for another day despite all the complaints. He opens a small metal container, shocking Arisa when she realizes the white crystals inside are precious homemade salt. Hokage explains he boiled seawater while working on tools, though it only produced a modest amount, and the girls cheer at the sight. He demonstrates that the tin is actually a multi-purpose camping cooker that can also double as a compact lunchbox. Everyone gathers around the fire in anticipation, watching intently as their salted fish sizzles over the flames. They dig in together, delighted that the simple seasoning makes dinner taste unbelievably good in the cool evening air. Eri notes a slightly bitter edge and wonders if it is burnt, and Hokage explains the flavor comes from leftover minerals. He adds that if they could refine it further they would get clean table salt, but Arisa insists it tastes perfectly fine as is. Karen remarks that even with such rough living, this place is surprisingly comfortable, prompting Hokage to ask what she means. She calmly analyzes how the temperature, humidity, and nearby sea and river make this cave an almost ideal base camp. Arisa laughs that Karin sounds like a history nerd acting as Hokage's spokesperson, while Karin downplays her own usefulness. Hokage agrees the climate is great but warns they are overlooking one crucial survival factor beyond simple comfort. The others shout in confusion until he points out that there are mysteriously no mosquitoes at all buzzing around their camp. He explains how mosquito-borne diseases kill vast numbers of people each year, leaving Arisa and Mana shrieking in horror. Hokage adds that he has also seen no sign of scorpions, snakes, or other venomous creatures, making this island unusually safe.